Hi, everyone. I'm sorry to interrupt your lunch. So today, I'm very excited to present our keynote speaker, Dr. Ed Bertschinger. The other day, I went on YouTube and I watched an hour-long presentation that he gave. And it was all about making a difference in the life of people who are like us. And so what really struck me is that not only is today's speaker an amazing cosmologist and astrophysicist, but he's also a caring and loving human being. He believes in diversity, in inclusion, in equity, and in mentorship. In his own words, Dr. Bertschinger's mission is to make MIT not only the top-ranked university for science and engineering, but also to make it one of the best places to work and study for everyone. His commitment to all of us, the students, faculty, disadvantaged people, underrepresented people, it's to all of us. And so very quickly, I learned that Dr. Bertschinger already cared about each and every one of us in this room, although he had not necessarily met any of us. I think this is really special. Throughout MSRP, we have talked a lot about imposter syndrome. This idea many of us have of not being good enough, worthy enough, accomplished enough. This is something that hits minority groups hard, and it's something I can say I experience almost every day when I sit down in a physics classroom and I look around and I struggle to find another girl. So the fact that someone is out there trying to champion diversity, inclusion, and equity in academia brings me great relief. I'm touched to know that there is someone looking out for each and every one of us. He knows that we belong in the field of science and that we can all make a difference in the world. This past Wednesday, I was lucky enough to meet Dr. Bertschinger in person. He mentioned that his background did not paint a linear picture to his success. His mother was an immigrant with an 8th grade education, and his father did not finish college. So it is clear to me that Dr. Bertschinger has had to work and persevere to become the accomplished man that he is today. It is inspiring to me that no matter what your background is, we all have the potential to achieve greatness. So, to shed some light on Dr. Bertschinger's amazing career, I will read to you a short bio of his. Ed Bertschinger is a professor of physics at MIT with an affiliation in the program in Women's and Gender Studies. He is a scholar activist in diversity, equity, and inclusion in higher education. Ed served as MIT's inaugural Committee and Equity Officer from 2013 to 2018, and has served on numerous national committees and task forces on equity in physics and astronomy. During 2007 to 2013, he was physics department head at MIT. He is a theoretical astrophysicist whose research lies in cosmology, gravitation, and numerical methods, and whose passion lies in shifting the culture of STEM fields to be inclusive and equitable for everyone. He is a fellow of the American Association for the Advancement of Science and the American Physical Society, and has won the MIT MLK Leadership Award, the Outstanding Freshman Advisor Award, a Guggenheim Fellowship, and many other awards. It is originally from California, and he enjoys cooking, birdwatching, and running, in addition to being a father and a husband. Without further ado, it is my pleasure to introduce Dr. Ed Bertschinger.
Wow, thank you so much, Anna, for that really kind introduction. I'm really grateful and excited to be here, and perhaps suffering a little bit of imposterism myself. But let me get set up with my presentation here, and then we'll get going. So just a moment while I make sure we're plugged in and ready to go. Okay, great. I want to thank not only Anna, but the staff of all the MSRP programs and EBICS who are here, who've made the summer possible and this wonderful luncheon possible. In particular, I want to thank Gloria Anglone of MSRP General and her staff, Mel Burris, Noel Wakefield. I want to thank Blanche Staton, who has given so much to this program over many, many years and to much else in the graduate student experience at MIT. And to all of the staff and faculty who have served as mentors, who have helped to make this summer possible, really momentous summer in the lives of so many people in this room, my heartfelt thanks. Thanks to you. So I'm going to speak a bit about my journey as a human being and as a scientist, beginning with these images on the screen. They're a little dark, but you may be able to discern some photographs of the nighttime sky because I am an astrophysicist, but along with my other passions about community, inclusion, equity, creating classroom environments where everyone feels welcome to participate and contribute, and the success of all our students of all genders, race, ethnicities, and so on. How did this happen? Well, I'm going to go back in time to 1982, and this is the cover of the New York Times on June 17th, 1982, and I want to draw your attention not to the Falkland Island conflict between the UK and Argentina, but to that bottom little headline for this photograph: "Throngs fill Manhattan, New York City, to protest nuclear weapons." In my third year of graduate studies, I nearly dropped out of Princeton. I wanted to join the US Foreign Service with the goal of becoming a diplomat. That was a big change from pursuing a PhD in theoretical astrophysics. Well, in 1982, the world was experiencing a nuclear arms race, and a lot of people felt threatened by the possibility of nuclear Armageddon. In fact, millions of people engaged in activism to try and push governments away from the brink. I was one of them, joining a group of more than 750,000 protesters filling Central Park in New York City on Saturday, June 12th, 1982. Now, questioning the value of a PhD in astrophysics at a time when the world seemed on the point of Armageddon, I wanted to do something to make a better world, and I wasn't sure that completing that PhD was the right way to do it. So I applied for a job as a Foreign Service officer in the US State Department, hoping to become a diplomat. After a day of interviews in Washington, D.C., I reached the same conclusion as the State Department did. This was not the right path for me. I had neither the preparation nor the perspective for a career in the Foreign Service. Actually, it reminds me a little bit of the advice that I got from my freshman physics instructor, who told me after a mediocre performance in the class, actually he wrote this in my evaluation, "Ed tries very hard, but should think about doing something other than theoretical astrophysics." Well, since I managed actually somehow to become a graduate student in Princeton doing theoretical astrophysics, I resolved to build on that investment in my education and my love of the subject to see where they would take me. But I also made myself a promise that wherever my career took me, I would contribute to social justice, even though I didn't know that terminology at the time. Amazingly, 4 years later, the same year that MSRP began in 1986, I moved into a faculty office at MIT next to Philip Morrison, a Manhattan Project scientist who was one of those who called for a demonstration bombing in Japan instead of the attack on cities that took place 73 years ago with the bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And my first publication was this letter to the New York Times in August of 1982, in the midst of all this national ferment and turmoil about the nuclear arms race, stressing that militarism might be avoided, and indeed Manhattan Project scientists, including Phil Morrison, had called for a demonstration bombing instead of the direct bombing of cities. how could I possibly have imagined that having been declined that opportunity to work as a Foreign Service officer, I would become an MIT faculty member, a place that didn't even admit me as an undergraduate, a place that I dreamed of as a child but never imagined where I could be a professor, and have an office next to the great theoretical astrophysicist Philip Morrison. Wow, it was a dream come true. Well, how did this happen? Go back to my childhood. I was born in Oakland, California, as Anna mentioned, to an immigrant mother with an 8th grade education and a father with a high school education, and lived the first half of my childhood in this amazing city of social activism and of black activism. It was a place where the Black Panther Party was formed. Yes, that was a political party. And so many contributions to American society and culture have come from that amazing place. And that was where I was born. When I was 8 years old, my family moved to a small farm town in Southern California. And in that place, we were the only white family in a Chicano, in a Latino neighborhood. All of us were in poverty. But all of us had some gifts. And one gift that was very important to me was the cultural heritage of my mother, who was an immigrant from Finland. And Finland is a small country that was next to the Soviet Union, living in the shadow of the Soviet Union, where for survival, the people had to be very resilient and strong. There's a Finnish cultural concept called sisu, which means guts, like intestines. Finns are very proud of this quality that they have, just like Americans may be proud of their entrepreneurship or their friendliness and known for that around the world. Finns are known for their sisu, which is kind of an extreme stubbornness. One of my friends, a motivational speaker, Emilia Lati, says, "Sisu begins where perseverance and grit end." So I had an interesting childhood. You can see my family portrait there. And can you guess which one is me? So I have a clue for some of you in the audience. For those of you who are first generation to college in your family, which one do you think I would be? Which one? Left? Tall one? I am tall, but I must have been standing on a box at that time because when I was 8 years old, I wasn't as tall as my father. That's me, the firstborn son, and yes, indeed, the mother invested all of her attention and energy to having that firstborn son succeed in school. And I love my brothers and my family, but I'm the only one who went to higher education and moved out of state and became a professor at MIT. And you can see who some of my heroes were, ranging from Dr. Spock to Carl Sagan. So I want to say a little bit about my scientific accomplishments, but that will not be so much the content as who did the work. As an assistant professor, so here's for all of you, those of you who are thinking about a career in higher education, and for those of you who are assistant professors, maybe this will resonate with you. I worked very hard towards tenure. After all, I was a Finn with SISU. I knew that tenure was based on some imprecisely defined concept called impact. Everyone told me, you have to make impact in your field. How impactful were my scientific contributions as judged by senior scientists in my field outside of MIT? That would determine whether I got tenure. I had amazing research students who did very well. And quickly, I realized that their scientific contributions would greatly exceed anything that I could do alone. So I decided that mentoring was how I would make my greatest impact. And I had a series of I've had a series of outstanding students. Many of them are now leaders in their fields of astrophysics. Undergraduate students, If you look carefully at the dates, you'll see that I had many, many undergraduate students early in my career. I started on the faculty in 1986, and I achieved tenure in 1992. And I had a pretty unusual trajectory because I had 0 PhD students, or maybe zero PhD students complete their PhDs by the time of my vote for tenure that was taken. But I had 10 senior thesis students. I didn't plan it that way. It's just that I found the students were so outstanding that I just kept saying yes when they, when they asked. And then, of course, I've had many wonderful summer students as well. So altogether, 50 students, many of whom have gone to be leaders of their respective fields, ranging from biology to finance to physics and astrophysics. And of course, some of my students have been MSRP students as well, including these two wonderful people, Hugo Espejel and Chris Pardo, who were with me a few years ago and are currently completing their PhDs in physics and astrophysics. But as well as directly supervising students, I've been recruiter, mentor, advisor, trying to get faculty involved in supervising MSRP students when I was the head of the physics department because, well, I learned that the way you get things done is by empowering other people. So I set it as my goal to empower the faculty in my department to undertake the same kind of role of mentor and champion of students, and you can see the results are really very impressive here. I love these people. They're dear friends, and I'm so grateful to what they have taught me. So I want to come to this question of the faculty role. And I know that there are many wonderful faculty mentors in the audience, and I want to bring this perspective of maybe trying to empower you to develop your superpowers and bring them back to your departments to encourage these practices that make such a difference for not only the individuals, but for our organizations. And I'm going to focus on 4 topics important in graduate student selection and success: admissions, belonging, mentoring, and climate. And I'm not going to say a lot about slides like this, which are obviously too dense to read, but refer to a book. And a wonderful author of this book and speaker, Professor Julie Posselt of USC, she wrote a book called Inside Graduate Admissions, Merit, Diversity, and Faculty Gatekeeping. She studied the graduate admissions process in a number of leading science departments around the country and wrote this book on her observations. And she has been giving advice and sharing her learnings with faculty around the country in the last 2 years. And in particular, she came and spoke at MIT last fall, October of 2017, and you can find on the web very easily a description of her visit. I really encourage the faculty to look at that assessment of how our graduate programs work so that we can always be asking, are we doing things in an optimal way? What are the consequences of our procedures? How can we make them better? Here's some advice that she gives in her book. To revisit graduate admissions committee routines, make them explicit. Use holistic approach, just like is done at the undergraduate level, the concept of holistic admissions, looking not just at the test scores, but at many other measures of students' capacity to succeed. I would add, think about building a cohort of students, because much of what students learn is from their peers, and it's not from being isolated in individual faculty research groups. Utilizing rubrics on evaluations to try to minimize the unwanted effects of bias. Reviewing the compositions of the committees. Looking at institutional data, incentivizing admissions and recruitment. And very importantly, working to build your pool of prospective students. Well, for any faculty here who are thinking about the next cycle of graduate admissions, it seems to me you have a really marvelous pool in this room that will help you to kickstart your efforts. I mentioned rubrics and I mentioned looking beyond test scores. There's now a lot of social science research on how people succeed. And experienced mentors know very well that success is not measured merely by your exam score performance. In fact, many students perform poorly on exams for the simple reason that they have not had the preparation that students from different backgrounds might have obtained. So my own case, I didn't get into MIT. I went to Caltech. I was very determined, as my faculty member noted, but I wasn't so well prepared. And I like to say my ambition exceeded my preparation, and it took a few years for the preparation to catch up. So as a reader of graduate school applications, faculty might be well advised to think about the qualities that contribute to student success and perhaps utilize a rubric like this one put together by the Fisk-Vanderbilt Bridge program. It's a fantastic rubric, and you can easily obtain this on the web. I mentioned data. This is perhaps directed for the students, maybe even more than the faculty, because students, MIT puts out an amazing amount of data about its composition, about its graduate programs, its admissions processes, and the faculty may not even know it, but their department is up on the web. So here I show some data from the physics department, but I could have selected bioengineering or brain and cognitive sciences or any one of them. This is all public data, and you can not only find about the composition of the size, the composition of the applicant pools, of the admitted students, of the enrolled students. You can also find curves like this, which are PhD completion curves, showing what fraction of entering cohorts complete their PhD after a certain number of years. And here I'm showing some data from physics, which are not very flattering, but they are what they are. In physics, and this is not unique to physics, but in physics, international students complete their PhDs at a higher rate than white and Asian US citizens and permanent residents, and at a higher rate than other students of color. And that's something that we have to understand and try to improve on, because we should not be losing 30%, 29% of our entering graduate students through the graduate school pipeline. So I urge the students to look at these data for departments that they're interested in applying to. MIT makes this data available for all departments. MIT is part of a national project called the National Life Sciences Consortium project, which is advocating that all universities do this. And so far, many universities are doing it for the life sciences, but not for every department. And of course, faculty will go look at this too, because they want to see, uh-oh, what is this that Ed is saying about our department is up on the website. I mentioned belonging as a second element after admissions. And you can think of this as how we develop a professional identity. Where do we begin to overcome this imposterism and feel like we actually belong? This is really an important question for everybody in the room, particularly those of us who have made it, who are actually in these faculty roles. We can forget with age what steps we had to go through to feel like we belonged. And yet this is the experience that every student is now going through. So when I think back on my career, there were three key times when a sense of belonging started to enter into my experience as a scientist. The first one was the equivalent of MSRP. It was my experiencing a summer research program after my junior year of college, and finding that I might have not been so well prepared for those physics classes, but I actually really enjoyed the research and I kind of thrived at it. And that was really empowering for me. A next moment was after I gave a presentation at a first-year graduate seminar where all the students were expected to develop some subject that was unfamiliar to them and give a presentation on it. I was extremely nervous, and so I did what a Finn would do. I just put my nose to the grindstone and worked really hard to try to learn as much as I could about the subject and develop as complete and comprehensive a presentation as I could. Extremely nervous, and afterwards the faculty lead said that was a great presentation. You should think about turning it into a scientific proposal. That really helped me feel like maybe I actually did belong in this graduate program. And then a pivotal step in my career was after I solved a problem that I had worked on alone for 2 years as a graduate student. That's maybe was the first indication to the faculty that, okay, this guy Ed is serious. The trying hard really matters. So this was my first scientific publication, Cosmological Self-Similar Shock Waves and Galaxy Formation. It sounds pretty abstruse, but honestly, so do some of the titles of the posters that I've seen this morning. But there's an interesting story behind this that I want to share that illustrates the importance of the non-cognitive variables, in this case, persistence. In my first year of graduate school, I was assigned to work with a faculty member, a cosmologist, kind of at random. They had this system set up in the department of rotations. And so my first research rotation was actually on this project. The advisor gave me a difficult project, one that really could not reasonably be completed by a graduate student or a postdoc or a faculty member within a year. And I made a little bit of progress, but it was such a hard problem that it just seemed pointless to continue. So I moved on to my next rotation. Little did the faculty member know, I really wanted to solve that problem. So I spent 2 years learning physics and mathematics, studying books, working out model problems that were similar to it. And I didn't tell my advisor because I was embarrassed. I didn't want to let him know that I had really had failed to solve the problem. It was better just to let it go. But I couldn't let it go. So I kept working on it for 2 years, and eventually I solved the problem. And in the winter of my 3rd year, so about the time I was starting to get involved in all this nuclear disarmament activism, I went to my advisor and I said, Professor, do you remember that project you gave me the first year? Well, I believe I've solved it, and I've written a draft paper. Would you be so kind as to look at it? His jaw dropped. And it was not merely that I had solved the problem, or that I'd even continued working on that problem. It turns out I hadn't known it, but he had continued working on that student and enlisted colleagues from Japan to try and help him solve the problem, and they had just completed a draft of a paper too. So after recovering, he said, I'd be happy to look at your paper and give you my feedback. A couple of weeks later, he called me in and he said, your work is excellent. Your results are correct. They match with ours where we overlap. You've done some things that we haven't done. I'm going to support your publication of this paper and pay the page charges. And oh, by the way, how would you like to do a PhD with me? Mentoring and climate. This beautiful graphic was made by a chemistry graduate student 8 years ago, Raul Correa. It was part of a poster competition for research mentoring that the Office of Graduate Education organized at the time. And I love it. It's a physics symbol, and one side represents the transition from frustration to growth of a student, and the other is the perspective of the mentor and the satisfaction of working with the younger student. So this I have framed on my office in my office wall because it's a beautiful representation. Very important for faculty and really for everybody to develop their mentoring powers by receiving training. Your professional society might have a training seminar like physics does. The importance of encouragement. That helps to build a sense of belonging, encouragement rather than the kind of harsh criticism that's present in some lab cultures. Importantly, we live in a society, in a world where it's really important for people to find some sense of belonging and wholeness, that they don't have to check their identities at the door. So for the research mentors, find ways of engaging students as whole people, recognizing all aspects of their identity, and recognizing their individuality, so developing your listening skills as well. and then transmit those skills to the students to build their listening, collaboration, and networking skills as well. You can add your own tips in here. The point is to be intentional about it, develop a practice of culturing in your research group, and transmit that to your students. That is how you get the kind of success that I had with those 50 students. I mentioned data, and this goes to the last topic of climate. Another bit of data pretty revealing about the situation at MIT is publicly available at the MIT website, and you can find the links to it at my blog, iceoblog.mit.edu. This is a heat map showing a summary of the climate experience for inclusion experienced at MIT by different groups as measured by certain survey questions. This is based on internal MIT surveys that have pretty good response rates with thousands and thousands of respondents. And I want to show you here some results for students where the students have been disaggregated by gender, here a binary gender, male, female, used in our systems, as well as an LGBTQ kind of status. So our surveys have not yet used really good modern definitions of gender identity and sexual orientation, but we have some proxies, and those turn out to be really informative about the experience that people have at MIT of the culture here. And if you look at this, you'll see that there are some columns that have a lot of brown. Brown means bad. Here in this case, it means not such a good climate. Dark blue means very positive climate. So some questions are more revealing of differences than others are. The one that shows kind of a solid wall of orange and brown is the students' responses to the question, I have to work harder than some of my peers to be taken seriously. You know, agree or disagree, there's what's called a 5-point Likert scale, and the means have been coded into the colors that you see. And when you look at this, you say, wow, students are really experiencing something about the MIT climate and environment. And I think it is what Anna referred to in her introduction. It's a sense of belonging and perhaps of imposterism that we have to really work hard to overcome. But I have to say that it may not be entirely imposterism. When I showed these data to women in physics, a physics graduate student said, how is it imposterism when we're actually told we don't belong here? Ooh, so there to the faculty, we have work to do. And it may not be that the faculty member is telling them, the students, they don't belong. There may be messages that students are giving, staff, maybe even some of the implicit messaging, body language and so on. Anyway, data like these show that gender plays a big role, gender and gender identity, in how people experience MIT, and I think how they experience STEM environments in general. And that's one reason why I decided to join the MIT program in Women's and Gender Studies. I want to understand more about it and help to be a part of the solution here. So what is the impact of all of this work? Well, for MSRP, it's 33 summers. Between the several programs, well over 1,000 research interns. For those who don't know, MSRP is almost unique among programs like this nationally in that it is not restricted to US citizens and permanent residents. So everyone is welcome here, as long as they're pursuing their undergraduate degrees in US institutions. 25 departments in all 5 MIT schools have hosted MSRP interns. I believe this is the largest such program nationally. Of course, there are well-known REU sites that are funded by National Science Foundation or other organizations, but this is MIT funded. And of course, it's birthed other programs, including the MIT offspring of the Bio and BCS program, EBICS, PIXI, philosophy, and so on. The outcomes, the credentials are impressive. 89% of the alumni have received graduate degrees. 89 of MSRP alumni have received MIT graduate degrees, and 22 are currently enrolled. And yet, if you add 89 and 22 and compare it with 826, you'll see that it's only 13% of MSRP students to date have actually entered MIT graduate programs. I think our faculty have a great applicant pool here and can look at boosting that number. And then, of course, as with my students, when you invest in the young people in this way, many of them go on to amazing careers, including 2 faculty members here at MIT. So, to summarize, I've been a science activist involved in mentoring and social justice, starting as a graduate student. But it's not only the causes of nuclear Armageddon that have concerned me here, it's Black Lives Matter, me holding a protest sign in a march that shut down Newbury Street in Boston in 2014. And together with a literature professor, Ruth Perry, we wrote an article on white privilege in the student newspaper. And we got some pushback for that, but it was really important for the students and the community to see that white faculty members were very concerned about the climate and the experience that our students and staff and faculty of color were experiencing. So these are the things that you can do when you try very hard at something. And I'll leave you with this graphic about making a career of science, mentoring, and social justice, one of my favorite cartoons, just illustrating the various steps of social justice progress that we can make by moving from equality, where people maybe all have the same things, to equity, where people have what they need, to liberation, where we're all involved in the game. That's my goal, and I hope that you'll join me with it. Thank you very much for your attention. And I'll give this copy of the book to the first faculty member who raises their hand.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Ed. And let's give him one more round of applause. And so we are going to move on to our next speaker, and it is Marwa Sahad, who's going to do a student reflection, and she's part of the MSRP Bio program.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Marwa Ahmed Saad, one of the MSRP Bio students this summer. I am from Egypt, and I study biomedical sciences at Western Michigan University. I am a rising senior, and it's my honor to talk to you today about my experience at MIT. Well, I love roller coasters with all the excitement, challenge, risk, and joy they have. To me, this program has been much like a great roller coaster ride. First, I had a long waiting line. I applied last year and did not get in, but I was on the waiting list, which was encouraging. So I applied again this year and finally got the chance to experience the ecstasy of reading Mandana's email, starting with congratulations. After a while, I started to realize the challenge I was going to face. New, intensive, probably intimidating environment, and my performance has consequences. But this challenge added beautiful meanings to the coming experience. Arriving at MIT was like starting the ride, except that the slope was undefined. I flew to Boston on Sunday and had cloning experiments running on Tuesday. But once I arrived at MIT and met with the MSRP group, the place felt very welcoming, and the anxiety was replaced by getting to know everyone else in the program. Then was the ride up. Meeting MIT faculty and students who all gave us generous time to talk about their experiences and career paths. Learning about each other's different cultures and research backgrounds during the dinners. And the exciting part of the ride up was meeting the Springer Lab members and start learning immunology and learning about the different experiments and topics in immunotherapy. Tim, my postdoc mentor in the Springer Lab, did a great job helping me learning these new languages of immunology and encouraging me to ask questions. in addition to the help I got from all members of the lab in explaining new concepts. Then was the methods and logic course, which was a great experience in getting to learn science more and think critically and thoroughly about the experiments. This fast-paced environment was a new experience and something I was striving for, because I think being at such a stimulating environment is a great way to develop personally and scientifically, and I think it was. Another fascinating aspect I got to experience at MIT was the interaction between different sciences and engineering, and I was impressed by how this collaboration is cultivated. Then the roller coaster made a turn and went down, and that was when the time when things got really stressful. Not every experiment was going well in the lab, and there was a lot to do, and we are talking a lot about grad school, and that made me feel I need to prepare myself more. But it was a great learning experience. First, science does not always go smoothly as we hope, but patience, passion, and good company can really make us enjoy the ride. For me, the Springer Lab was such a great environment to be at, where everyone was supportive and helpful and enjoying the learning process. And this attitude was transferred to me and helped me get over all the cloning frustrations. Second, this time taught me that it's critical for me personally to ask for guidance and feedback to make sure I'm not just working hard, but that I'm working hard on a reasonable track. Around that time, Martha Vineyard trip was intelligently scheduled to give us a relaxing break and chance for reflection. And this was also one of the times we were talking to other peers in the program, strengthened the bonds between us and helped relieve the stress. And now that this program is coming successfully to an end, with mixed feelings of happiness and achievement, and sadness of the goodbyes, and hope and passion for the future, I would like to thank everyone who helped bringing this program that far, and thanking to Mandana and Zella who made sure we are getting the most out of our time. And very special thanks to Stephanie and Tim and everyone in the Springer Lab for the great host and mentorship and for the fun time we had together. And thanks for every faculty, MIT faculty and students who made the time to talk to us about their experiences. And finally, I am very grateful to my professors at Western Michigan University, especially Dr. Martin Vonhoff and Dr. Wendy Bean, who ignited my passion for research in my freshman year. And thanks to my family, whom being thousands of miles away does not stop them from encouraging me to follow my dreams. And thank you all for your attention.
Now on to the part that we've all been waiting for. It is time to recognize our research interns, and so we're going to have the program directors from all three programs come up and announce their interns. So it'll be Kaylee Allen from EBICS, followed by Zella Perillo for MSRP Bio, and Dr. Noel Wakefield with the MSRP General Pod Leaders for MSRP General.
Do I have slides or no? Just saying everybody's name? General's first on the slideshow, so hold on.
Okay, technical glitches here. We're going to have MSRP General go first, followed by MSRP Bio, and then EVIC. So welcome, Dr. Noel Wakefield.
Guys. Hi, my name is Noel Wakefield, and I'm the Assistant Director of MSRP General and Diversity Initiatives in the Office of Graduate Education. And this summer, I had the pleasure of working with 40 brilliant summer interns as well as other MIT community members. In addition, we hired 8 amazing graduate student pod leaders: Randy Williams, David Larson, Rin Islam, Lindsay Backman, Christina Torres, Indy Gruel, Brittany Johnson, and Jesus Donez Monroy. So our pod leaders play an important role during the summer and are often the first line of communication with our interns. They have provided personal and professional guidance and have helped them acclimate to the MIT way of life. Before we acknowledge our MSRPG interns, I would like to give our pod leaders a round of applause. And at this time, I would like to call up Randy Williams, who will acknowledge Pod 1 interns. We ask all interns to stand when their names are called and remain standing until all of their pod peers are announced. Audience, please hold your applause until all pod members have been announced. Thank you.
Thank you, Noah. Cool. Hello, my name is Randy Williams. I'm currently a PhD student in the Media Lab, where I study human-robot interaction. And David Larson, who's a PhD student in the MIT department, and I were the pod leaders of Pod 1. I just want to say that you all are some of the most intellectually talented, deeply compassionate, and wonderful people who I've ever met. Thank you for letting me be a part of your lives this summer, and I look forward to everything that you accomplish in the future. So, when I call your name, please stand up and remain standing for the next 10 names that I call. And then, of course, the audience will applaud. So, without further ado, Akinola Akinbote. Oh, there's a slide. Akinola is over there. Ilham Ali. Yes. Cuba Englund. Gustavo Correa, Ana Duarte, Luis Hurtado, Kennard Johnston, Emmanuel Kayiwa, Alvaro Sagun, and John Carlos Vega Diaz. No, Thank you. And next, will the leaders for Pod 2. Lindsay.
Hi, I'm Lindsay Backman. I'm a graduate student in chemistry. I work in Kathy Drennan's lab, protein crystallography, it's right there. And I had the pleasure of being a pod leader for Pod 2 with Rin Islam, who is a graduate student in the MIT department. So to my Pod 2, I had a wonderful summer with you all, and I hope to see you back at MIT soon. So first, Mayar Alam, Stephen Kolar, Leticia Costa, Soala Akine, Aljalil Galt, Joshua Lewis, Anisha Nakagawa, Kingsley Nwosu, Cora Touchstone, and Haley Warren. So. And I'll hand it over to Pod 3.
Hello, everyone. I'm Christina. I'm a PhD student in the biological engineering department, and Pod 3 are my children. I love you all. So starting off with Mariam Ahmed, Joseph Lance Casilla, Samuel Golub, Oscar Gonzalez, Luis Gonzalez, Ivan Herrero, or Alex, Morgan Jones, Janique Lee, Andrea Naranjo Soledad, and Christopher Race. Now I'll pass it on to Brittany and Jesus for Pod 4.
Hello, everyone. My name is Brittany Johnson. I'm a master's student in the Media Arts and Sciences program in the MIT Media Lab.
And my name is Jesus Dones. I'm a chemistry student in the Rains Lab.
And we have the pleasure of being pod leaders of Pod 4. It's been a great summer, and like we said in the closing celebration, we look forward to the great things you all are gonna do, and we for sure are gonna keep in touch, so it's been great.
So first we have Jaquesta Adams.
Malik Blackman, doing all the screaming.
Who should say this one?
Albert G. King.
Luis Gomez.
Anzar Lemon.
Jairo Maldonado Contreras.
Jimares Montes Villalobos.
Nicole Montoya.
Aubrey Simonson.
And Joseph Smith, AKA Joey.
We'd now like to welcome Zella Perella with MSRP Bio.
Good afternoon, everyone. Mandana Sassanfar usually does this introduction. She's the actual director of the program, but I do appreciate the introduction as the director. It gives me hope. She usually tells a few stories that are infused with comedic flair. But I'm not going to try to fill her shoes today. I do have a couple things that she wanted me to cover in her absence. The first thing is that, you know, the students, when they set foot on campus, are so busy. They have workshops, they have networking dinners, social obligations. And then somewhere along the line, we're like, hey, do you have some spare time to design an image for our t-shirt contest? And it has to represent all of the individual studies that the students are focusing on this summer. And then we get one special person to volunteer their time and go through countless rounds of edits until we get it right. So I just wanted to say thank you to Bryce Yan. She has the utmost patience and did a great job. Secondly, Mandana usually gives out a t-shirt as a special thank you to someone special. And this year she selected Stephanie Spranger because she is a newer member to the MSRP community. So we wanted to say thank you, Stephanie. I don't know where you are, but I have a t-shirt for you. And there you are. Hi. I'll bring you one right after this. And without further ado, I'll introduce the students. You guys can stand up when I say your name. Okay, Nicholas Arp. Liz Bond. Lenise Castro. Brandon Chen, he's back here for the second year. Rian El-Bashir. Liz Marie Garcia Rivera. Jared Grims is not here, but we're recognizing his participation. Calvin Herman. Here, Joysher, who I need to point out another thing. We have a highlight reel, sort of a candid reel of funny moments throughout the summer, and she put that together for us, so thank you here. Swanee Lamboy. She left the program a little bit early, but we have to recognize her as well. Samuel Leiber, this is his second year. And if Mandana was here, she'd say he's still the tallest. Gabriela Lopez Perez. Ugana Mbekwe. Hafsa Mira. Anuha Mupurala. Oh, wait, I'm one behind. I'm looking at the wrong thing. I'm so sorry. I just realized that and nobody said anything. So I'm actually one ahead of everything that I'm telling you guys. Okay, Hafsa Mire. Anuha Mupurala. Victor Rivera Santana. Marwa Saad, didn't she do such a good job with her speech? She was amazing. Christian Taku. Giselle Valdez, where are you? Kiana Williams. Luke Arend. Taylor Baum, both of them are on their second year at MSRP. Natalie Fernandez, second year MSRP. Sol Fonseca. You should have seen her dance moves last night on the cruise. Martha Gall. Azhar Hussein. Brianna Marsh. Ray Miranda. Raul Mojica Soto Albors. Carla Montejo. Mariah Ochoa, she couldn't be here today, unfortunately, conflict with her supervisor. Sarah Recupero. Christopher Rodriguez. Marcos Sanchez Rivera. Michael Satterson. Erica Shook, also second year. J. Marie Solist. Joy Velez Janorio. Bryce Yan. Rebecca Zhang. That's everybody for MSRP Bio. Thank you. And now Noelle.
And lastly, Kaylee Allen with EBICS.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Kaylee Allen, and I'm the Education and Diversity Program Manager at EBICS. And EBICS stands for Emergent Behaviors of Integrated Cellular Systems. So just to give you an idea of what EBICS actually is, we are an NSF STC, which stands for Science Technology Center. What makes EBICS special is it's not just hubbed here at MIT. We're actually a multi-institutional center, which means we are composed of many institutions from around the country, as also international. So the EBICS REU students that you all have gotten to know over the course of the summer are part of a larger cohort that are also located at Georgia Tech and the University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign. So as a matter of fact, last week we got to take the REUs and everybody located themselves in, where were we? St. Charles, for our annual retreat, which means all of the institutions from EBICS got to meet up and we got to present our research, and the REU students competed in their poster competitions. And actually 2 of the REU students who placed first and third were from MIT. So yay for them. So I was very excited to be part of that. Furthermore, this is my first year at MIT, so I started in June 1st. So these 6 students and scholars that I'm going to introduce to you are my first REU cohort. So they are very near and dear to my heart, and I'm very excited to see where they're going to be in several years from now. So with no further ado, I would like to introduce to you Jane Akintoye, Christopher Carlson, and he received first place at the poster competition at our annual retreat. Congratulations again. And Alexa Cruz Bonilla, who we heard from earlier, and she got 3rd place at the poster competition. Furthermore, we have Patricia Garcia. We have Hannah Grubb. Where's Hannah? There she is. She's over there. And then we have Kendris Holland. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. And we're not done just yet. So next, I am going to introduce Al Jaleel Galt of MSRP General, who's going to come on up. And you've heard about these videos that each of the programs have created, and so Al Jaleel is going to introduce them and then showcase them. So please join us.
Hello. My name is Al Jaleel Galt, and I will be entering my 5th year at Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute to earn my Bachelor's of Architecture. There are 3 major components to the MSRP General experience, carefully curated by the MSRP administration team, which we are astoundingly grateful for. The first was the research component. What initially was a bit of an overwhelming experience in this new place, trying to intellectually ground ourselves over the course of 9 weeks, became a journey where students began to take exciting ownership over the work and the knowledge that they got to produce in their labs. And after seeing the great work of all of my peers today, I'm proud of you all, and I hope, and I'm sure you all are proud of yourselves as well. The second major component was the professional development component aspect of the program, which was a huge, unexpected gift. The highly discounted GRE prep, the invaluable and seemingly unattainable guidance we received on fellowship applications, the essay writing process, and how to actually exist as a graduate or PhD student at MIT, these all exist as investments in our lives that we actually don't know yet how to say thank you for. And lastly, and probably the most unexpected and the most invaluable gift, was the community component. Much earlier in the program, we were asked to present to each other in various creative ways our ideas of community. And so I shared the following poem. Oh, how they are excited for me. I too am excited for you. I get to start my every Tuesday mornings with my community. A collection of souls committed to improving their lives with intention. We hold one another when we reveal our vulnerability. We work with our shared network of social and human capital to support one another's goals. We promote understanding and diminish bigotry. We welcome all. We turn up. And we are excited for each other's lives. I was desperately lost, confused, and a little depressed before I found this collective. But now I can say I exist in power with them. And so what I didn't know is that after the various pod meetings that we've had here, the Project Adventure social component, Martha's Vineyard, the rooftop and cruise celebrations, is that, and after all the other social outings, is that I would now be able to say the same things that I love about my community back home. I can say the same is true about what we formed here. So please join me in appreciation of 3 multimedia presentations which strive to capture the experiences of MSRP General, MSRP Bio, and EBICS. Thank you.
Where's my sound? AV, can you put the sound up, please? Don't mind me.
Pair students with labs doing work that's interesting and relevant to them.
MSRP and the research that I've been engaging with is a really collaborative environment.
So MSRP is a fully immersive, all-round developmental program.
It's a summer research program, but it's a family. It's a support group, it's a network. It's the friends you'll make, the memories you'll build, the peers, the mentors. It's a family that will last.
This summer, I've had 2 MSRP students on my team. It's Ilham Ali and Anisha Nakgawa. They've worked together on one combined research project, and it's in collaboration with a company based in the city of Cotonou in Benin, West Africa.
Greenkeeper Africa harvests water hyacinth and turns into material that absorbs oil-based waste. And they're interested in better understanding where the plant will grow so they can focus collection efforts there.
On the hardware side, she's helping us identify what kinds of commercially available water sensors can best understand where the water is most likely to lead to the growth of this invasive waters plant.
So we're looking at how to use water quality sensors to figure out where the water hyacinth will grow, and also using complex systems modeling to understand how human behavior is impacted by the water hyacinth.
I work specifically on the data analysis side of it, so we can actually differentiate vegetation from space using the different wavelength bands that we can collect from satellite data. So we've been creating maps based on that. The largest challenge in satellite data is actually analyzing the data. So in the future, we hope to completely automate this process so that the maps of the water hyacinth extent can update in real time or near real time.
And the mission of Space Enabled is advancing justice in Earth's complex systems using designs enabled by space. And what drew me to this is the opportunity to use technology and my engineering background towards social and environmental issues.
I am thankful that this summer, my 2 MSRP students have been surrounded by other undergraduates at MIT, as well as graduate students and even guest researchers from other places. We all share how we are finding different ways to work on these issues of development and justice.
I've always been really interested in working on the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. They're very measurable, practical, but also really important and valuable outcomes. Working on space technology to be able to advance those is something that I can see myself doing long into the future.
I've always been interested in biology and engineering and everything, but it's still a broad field and I didn't know what specifically I wanted to go into. I lost my dad to kidney failure in 2013, and this was days before his transplant. And I was like, if we could just create this from the patient's stem cells. So that's when my interest in material science and biology and engineering just began to make so much sense.
A lot of people in our group are developing tissue engineering models using microfluidic platforms. And this summer, Equinol is specifically helping me work on a model that uses induced pluripotent stem cells to develop a cardiac fibrosis and a pulmonary fibrosis model.
My past experience was involved in cancer research, so colon and breast cancer research, but most of my work was done on a 2-dimensional in vitro plate. So coming here to MIT, I've been able to develop models in 3D systems, being able to create something that mimics this physiological system in vitro, reduces the need for animal sacrifices to test the drugs and for disease progression, and would also increase the efficiency of translation into clinical trials. One of my major challenges has always been with my self-confidence in terms of my research abilities. But within a couple weeks of being here at MIT, I've felt more empowered to do the research I do here. I think that's very, very important because being able to believe in oneself, believe in one's abilities, I think is vital towards maintaining that drive to keep on pushing. I've seen that change wherein I begin to believe more in myself and my abilities and my accomplishments.
Last summer I entered the Urban Risk Lab aspiring to be engaged with the social side of the profession, tackling built environment problems through architecture and planning. There is an increasing awareness on why should natural disasters be documented. After returning to Puerto Rico, I start my semester typically and around September. My summer research from 2017 became my daily life with my family. Puerto Rico had 2 major hurricanes, which influenced a lot in my aspirations and the way I want to give back to Puerto Rico.
When John Carlos first joined us last summer, we were just starting this research project on post-disaster housing systems in partnership with FEMA, trying to understand the history and impacts of disasters and government policy on housing.
A big challenge with some of this work, for example, is getting all of the hazard and risk profile and all of that data. What John Carlos has been focusing on is how do you translate those sort of broad concepts and bring them back to the community level and sort of the local level.
We still have houses with built-in wood, we have self-built homes, we have multifamily homes, we have incremental homes. A home is not a final product. A home is a process where a family builds on as the family keeps growing.
I've learned a lot from having John Carlos. The work we've done in the last year on the post-disaster housing would look completely different without his involvement.
It's been through MSRP that I've had the tools, the support structure, the faculty, the mentors to start understanding and visualizing my future contribution to not only Puerto Rico, the Caribbean archipelagos, but also the world.
Clap along
said, because I'm happy. Clap along if you feel like a room without a roof. Because I'm happy. Clap along if you feel like happiness is the truth. Because I'm happy. Clap along if you know what happiness is to you. Clap along if you feel like that's what you want to do. Because I'm happy. Clap along if you feel like a room without a roof. Because I'm happy. Clap along if you feel like happiness is the truth. Because I'm happy. Clap along if you know what happiness is to you. Clap along if you feel like that's what you want to do.
So I know that we are getting close to the end. Before we have our closing remarks from Dean Blanche Staton, we wanted to acknowledge our fearless leader, Gloria Anglone, for all of her work. She truly cares for our students and their well-being and success, and has taught me so much in the short 9 months that I've been here. So everyone, please help me recognize her. We have a gift for you.
And before we have closing remarks from Dean Staton, I would also like to thank one more fearless leader to my left. I'm Mel Burles, by the way, program assistant. Noelle has been an incredible mentor and an incredible support to not only all of you MSRP general students, but also to myself. And she has worked so hard this summer, and I would like to give a huge round of applause and thank Dr. Noelle Wakefield. And please welcome Dean Blanche Staton.
Good afternoon. It's nice to see all of you here. Yeah. And it's wonderful to have you here to celebrate our interns, their accomplishments, their experiences over these 9 weeks. And we're going to send them off now to continue to grow and to really thrive so that they can prepare themselves to become faculty, makers, innovators, government leaders, world leaders for the future. As I thought about what I might say in closing this year's program, I am the closer, I reflected on the 21 years of MSRP that I have had the privilege to witness and be part of. And some of you might start to count on your fingers and try to figure out how old that makes me. But that's okay. First of all, the life of this program, the evolution over the years, the incredible presence it has, the sustainability, and the impact of this program just take my breath away. Secondly, and here's where I want to land for a minute, no matter what else has changed, there is this one phenomenon that is always visible at the closing event, and it is this. Every year, the faculty, the postdocs, and the graduate students, inclusive of our pod leaders, who have taught, given research presentations, mentored, encouraged, supported our students, have shown up for this event. I see you, and we are grateful. What a resounding message of commitment to caring and to developing scholars that you show up every year for this event. Your presence, faculty, postdocs, and graduate students, also says that you believe in our young scholars and in their potential, that you value them, that you're interested in their research and their ideas. Your presence here says, I am with you and I'm for you. So what does that mean? You are validating them. If you just go back to Professor Bertschinger's talk about himself and how he started to feel like he belonged, one of the things, the second thing he listed under me had to do with how his research advisor made him feel. And that started to make him feel like he belonged and maybe he could do this. So validation has the power to propel our interns forward and upward in ways that you may not have even imagined. So thank you for opening your doors, your research labs, your offices, and your hearts to our interns, for welcoming them in, for giving them a home, an environment in which to learn and grow, and for doing what Einstein notes as the supreme art of the teacher, awakening joy in creating expression and knowledge. To all those who undergird the program, who work behind the scenes, without whom we would be doomed. That wasn't intended to rhyme, it just worked out. But we are infinitely grateful to you for your generosity of spirit and time, along with plain old hard work, as you worked behind the scenes consistently over these past months to make this day possible. You are the video productions experts, the application review committee, which comprises faculty and students, and you are the academic administrators who help with absolutely everything and anything all the time. To our interns, what a pleasure it has been to have you here. In you, we see the future with hope and endless possibilities. Through you, we can make a better world. When you return home, and to your institutions. Share what you've learned. Share what you've experienced. Encourage and help another student who is like-minded to have this opportunity at another time. Of course, we would love for you to all return as our graduate students, but we know that that may not be possible. But regardless, we hope that you've been enriched, enlightened, inspired, and emboldened by the experiences that you've had here. One intern shared with me a few weeks ago that this experience has been transformational for her. Perhaps others of you feel the same. Wherever you land, whatever you choose to do it fully, live authentically. Do work with passion, and do the work that energizes you. Walk boldly through the world, and as you do, where you see change needed, make it. You won't need to do it by yourself. Look at all the people you have now as part of your team, but make it. It will benefit future generations. I always have to say this. Remember, and many of you will know these words, to whom much is given, much is expected. To Ed Bertschinger, on behalf of a grateful community, I salute you for your courage, your grace, and your conviction. To deeply caring about our students, and for doing the really hard work that's not always applauded, and people aren't always responsive, but you do it anyway, to foster an inclusive, respectful, and caring environment where all feel valued. And so finally, to the program staff of EBICS and MSRP Biology, thank you for your partnership. And to our OGE staff, Gloria, Noel, Mel, you are the serious rock stars. And you rocked it. Enjoy what remains of the summer, and be well, and thank you.